Hey, it's Mike with Beyond Aesthetics, and in this second video, we're going to discuss how to understand macronutrients, that is protein, carbohydrates, and fats, as well as the nutritional hierarchy. So to this point, you've probably heard that carbs are the enemy, and vegetables are probably toxic to you. It all depends who you're talking to, if it's the keto zealots or the carnivore diets. But in reality, these things are just marketing schemes to create a tribal belief system to sell some BS. Okay, the truth is that all foods are comprised of macronutrients, and you can achieve any weight composition goal with all of them, any composition of them. So for your goals, we're going to learn how to prioritize certain macronutrients to meet your needs. So let's dive into just the basics. So when you look at a nutrition label, you've probably been conditioned to look at trans fats and saturated fats and just kind of miss the most of it. And the rest of it's likely a bunch of stuff maybe you don't understand or think doesn't really matter, or does it? So when we're talking about macronutrients, meaning the larger category of nutrients, we have to understand that each macronutrient has a caloric value. So you'll see, like on this nutrition label, it says calories from fats 45. Well, that's because each gram of fat has approximately 9 calories. Fats have the highest caloric value, and they take longer to break down and are a primary source of energy. Carbohydrates have a much lower caloric value at 4 per gram, and instead are considered one of the most rapidly available energy sources. And then you have protein. Protein also has 4 calories per gram, but it's not a primary source of energy. Instead, it's used for enzymatic functions and the repair and formation of tissue. Now, on here, I put alcohol. Alcohol is not one of the more popular macronutrients. It's not discussed, but you must know it still contains a caloric value at 7 calories per gram. And we'll dive into kind of some of the intricacies of alcohol throughout this program, such as how it becomes a priority fuel source when it's present in the body. So there's a lot to kind of dive into there in future lessons. Now, the nutritional hierarchy, this is going to be useful as you progress throughout, and maybe you can't hit your meals for the day, or you're just kind of confused on which ones you need to prioritize. So for all intents and purposes, your objective is to comply closely to the program provided. So this is to give you that guidance on those days that you're, like I said, you're not able to eat all your meals, or you're not sure how you need to structure your day. So let's look at this pyramid inversely, in that the top is not the most important, the foundation is. So like we discussed in the first lesson, with net energy balance, total calories consumed is overall what matters. That's the king. If you're trying to lose weight, being in a deficit is what matters. If you're trying to gain weight, being in a surplus is what matters. So we've discussed CECO in depth. So now once we've got the total calories consumed nailed down, now we can start worrying about the macronutrient composition. That is how we want to partition proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Once we have that done, then we can start to work towards meal timing. And that kind of alludes to the nutrition dashboard that you had, where you saw that I gave you a macro distribution depending on if you ate 3 meals, 4 meals, or 5, how you want to split those. The benefits of meal timing will be discussed in future lessons, but as it kind of relates to metabolic efficiency or where we want to use energy with respect to our training. Now, once calories, macros, and timing is all lined up, then we want to work on refining our food selection. That is to eat for the micronutrients, whole foods over processed foods, and how this makes all the difference with just bodily function, energy, performance, and recovery, as well as hormone management and regulation that we'll dive into again in future lessons. Now, then, and only at that point, do we really start worrying about what supplements to include in a nutrition program. Now, there are some exceptions, because if you are in a deep calorie deficit for a prolonged period of time, there might be some supplements that we want to include that you just simply aren't going to be able to get enough of when you're eating in a deficit. Now, it's pretty straightforward regarding calories and macronutrients, but most people want to make things seem incredibly difficult to, again, peddle some garbage product or fad diet. But what matters is that you understand some pretty basic rules. is that when calories are equated, and if you're in a deficit, any composition of macronutrients is going to lead you to the goal, because there's no macronutrient that's inherently bad. Carbs and fats don't make you gain more fat than one or the other, so long as net energy balance is considered. However, for the intents and purposes of this program, there is a philosophy that I use, because we are not simply just trying to lose weight. We also want to build muscle or retain muscle, or make sure that you can comply with a diet or increase your ability to comply with that diet. So because of that, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a priority on protein, and that is for several reasons. And that's because protein is typically the highest in satiety, meaning that you're going to feel full, and being full is going to improve your ability to adhere to your plan each and every day. Also, protein is critical for muscle protein synthesis, especially when we're in a deficit. If we're not in a deficit, carbohydrate can kind of aid there, but for this, if you're trying to lose weight, we want to emphasize protein. And that's for the creation, or at least the retention, of current muscle tissue. Now, say for example, according to your nutrition dashboard, you have a macronutrient breakdown. You have the amount of grams that you want to hit every day for protein. So if yours is 150 grams, just make sure that you're getting between 145 and 155 grams of protein every day. And you're going to distribute that across all your meals. You want to try to spread out protein evenly throughout the day. Now, with regards to carbohydrates and fats, that can really be split either way. It really doesn't matter, again, so long as we don't exceed the calorie goal, because that's rule number one. However, there are some things to consider. Remember, fat has a higher caloric value, so you're going to be able to eat less fat and get more calories compared to carbohydrates. You might be able to get more voluminous food. So again, if you're eating in a deficit, you're going to want to increase fullness, satiety, and energy. So if you can prioritize carbs around your workouts and make sure that those carbohydrates are coming from whole sources of food, such as vegetables, fruits, and grains, then you're going to get nutrient-dense foods, whereas processed foods are highly palatable and not as filling. And then in addition to that, since fats are higher in calories, they're also lower in satiety. So we don't want to fill up entirely on fat. So again, this is really going to be based on preference, but this is my recommendation to you. Now, at this point, we want to make sure that we revisit kind of what the order of tasks are. So from here, you're going to start tracking all of your food. So download MyFitnessPal, create your account, start logging all of your intake. That includes liquids. So any beverages, Cokes, water, coffee, log everything. And then we're going to look at habit 1.4 and prioritize the lean protein at every meal. Start making that part of your daily consumption goal. And then once we're able to do that, then we'll start looking at that macro distribution that works best for you, whether that's 3, 4, 5 meals a day, but start distributing your carbs and fats according to one of those templates. And then as we've worked towards that, we can start refining and making sure that we land under our calorie target and within our macro ranges. So that wraps up the introduction series for calories and macros. If you have any questions, be sure to contact me. And if you have any feedback on this video, things that you wish were included or expounded upon, or maybe it's too long, or you wish it was longer, let me know. That way I can be sure to include those in future revisions.